Week 8. The boat has been sitting for 4 days. Welcome back to all the work, my restoration slash refurbishment slash awesomeification of my 1987 Ski Supreme. If you want to know what it looks like to do 20 hours of work in 25 hours, then this is your video. It is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. I have clearance from the wife to get out into the boat, and I am just going to put in a charge here. From what little I know about fiberglass, I want to do this whole process in a pretty continuous fashion. I also wanted to use full lengths of fiberglass. I figure that the way the fiberglass works in a linear fashion, that the longer your strips, the better, in hopes that long term the boat is going to be as stiff and sturdy as absolutely possible. So I want to cut and form all of my fiberglass to do this whole thing in one long thing down the engine mount, cross it over in the back, up under the gunnel coming forward, cross it over at the nose, and do that with a full 8-inch strip of 1708, and then double back over that with a 4-inch strip of 1708, again being full length the whole way. So here I am laying out that full length of 1708 and cutting around the engine mount. I am going to get about halfway through this and realize that it's not going to be long enough up at the nose, so then I make the decision to abandon this whole piece, recut it all, form it so that it's going to go in around the engine mount real good, and start over. The other thing I know about fiberglass work, which I'm being conscious of, is to build up layers of fiberglass, you want the previous layer to remain tacky, and then when you lay the new layer over it, you'll get a chemical bond between the two layers instead of letting it dry out, get dusty, and then you'd lay another layer and you'd end up with layers. If you have a chemical bond between the two, you'll end up with one solid material when you put them together and do it properly. So I am trying to do this whole thing with only 2-hour gaps between each laminating phase. Also, I need to go through, that is a sanding block that I'm showing off. I went and used a router and beveled the edges so that that thing I can sand really well. I'm still doing more sanding, looking at it, knowing I need more sanding. Really want to get this scuffed up really good, especially where I'm just laminating over gel coat. I want that to be properly scuffed so that I'll get a good adhesion. This is my dinner for the night, pizza. Go in, crush it with the fam, crush some pizza, get back to it. I am now cleaning the surface. I use a little bit of soap and water to start with, just to get the majority of the dust out of there, and then I will come back with the acetone. Oh, actually I'm going to cut more fabric, lay it out. Really want to plan this out. I am glad I planned it out and cut everything ahead of time. I am up against a bit of an issue right now. There are no more gloves left at the Home Depot. And so I have 11 pairs of gloves left, I believe. I bought a couple 5-packs of the nitrile gloves. They work decent, not great. And then as a fallback, I have some big, heavy dishwasher gloves. I thought I was going to be able to make it the whole way with just the 11 nitrile gloves. That turned into a pipe dream. I am now cleaning all the cracks with Total Boat Wash. I am taking the dust off of a roller right there. My plan is to use a roller to get the resin in up under that gunnel because it's so long. My arm doesn't totally fit in there, so I'm going to use a roller to get up in there. It's a long-handled one. Going all the way around it, Total Boat, cleaning the whole thing. I'm going to start laminating in that back corner up under the gunnel because I'm gonna have to sit and lean on the floor so much that I don't want to have wet newly laid up fiberglass that I'm leaning on. So I am starting in the back corner and moving my way around from there. I do need to mix up some peanut butter and go around and bevel in a couple of the sharp edges. I am learning that fiberglass does not bend over sharp creases. However, I don't peanut butter enough, and there's plenty of spots where I end up with air bubbles because right here I should have put on more peanut butter. Again, not knowing what I'm doing really biting me in the butt. That being said, I am fairly happy with the peanut butter work I did here. I felt like it was some of my better work. I took the time to smooth everything out. I used this little plastic putty knife that I got for the fairing. It worked out really well. All this seam work here, I think I did a really good job. There's Luke. He came by to see me. He recently broke his ankle in a water ski accident on my ski. So hopefully he's not mad at me. But he wanted to check out the progress, so he and I got to chit chat and hang out. He was drinking the vino, so it was a pretty fun conversation. I do get to brag to Luke about my wiring of the potential driver's side boat seat heater. I am pretty excited about that. It is worth noting that the fumes in here after that round of peanut buttering were powerful, and just that conversation with Luke without the mask on kind of got me a little bit lightheaded, I'd say. I really should have opened the garage door and aired the place out, but I just threw the mask on and got to work. Again, I knew I had a lot of work ahead of me, and this whole work session on the front end took about 3 times as long as I thought it was going to take, and so I wanted to get back to it. I am back to peanut buttering. I'm mixed up another batch of peanut butter, and I'm smearing it around again around the edges. I'm trying to add peanut butter where there's going to be a kink in the fiberglass, so I'm building up that corner as well as smoothing out all the cracks in the vertical seams. Where I'm working right now, there's actually a large gap between the floor and the hull of the boat. Those insides have those large gaps both where I am there and back towards the gunnel, so quite a bit of peanut butter went up in there. I did just close the garage door because the temperature dropped quickly on me in this evening, and I was worried if I got below 64 degrees I'd have a real problem. So I had to shut the garage door, lock in all the fumes, and get after it. Once I finished laying out the peanut butter, I let it cure for about 2 hours, went inside, edited a little bit of YouTube video, and came back ready to lay the fiberglass, which I had hung up and laid around the boat. You see, I do have a space heater. I am turning that on. I think the room temperature in the garage is about 60 degrees, but I'm hopeful that my space heater and the lights shining down from above, again, those are incandescent lights, so they put off a little bit of heat, is going to keep my surface area warm enough. Here I am getting the fiberglass in behind that gunnel, using my long arm roller there, paintbrush to lay it all down. I've been using a paintbrush to lay out all the resin at this point, and then I come back in with this little air bubble getter outer tool. And just recently I was watching some more boat videos, specifically Andy from Boatworks Today, and I'm noticing that he uses a roller a lot more than a paintbrush, especially for big jobs like this. And looking back now, I am pretty regretful that I didn't have a roller specifically for this purpose. I think that this right here is exactly what I was setting out to show in making these videos to really show what all the work looks like. Even though this is sped up 40 times speed, it is crazy how slowly I'm progressing through the boat and how little I've got laid up at this point in time. And this is what I really wanted to capture. Whenever I watch those videos, Andy from Boatworks Today or Ron Tanis, they always skip over this part and they go, oh, well, I'll get to work now, and then boom, they get to work and then show you how great and easy it looks, and you're like, oh god, that must have took 45 minutes, no big deal, instead of this 25-hour power sesh that I'm about to go through. So to really take this in and understand what it takes to do a job like this, especially as a first timer, here it is in crazy sped up fashion. This section that I'm glassing now went about as bad as any section on the whole boat went. The large gap that's down there is filled in with peanut butter. However, the edges where the floor goes up and then kicks up again to the driver's seat, those kinks are just too severe and they're too close together, and I didn't have enough fiberglass overlapping on the sides, which I learned after the fact from Andy at Boatworks Today. You need more overlap, and that would have been my solution there. So. And kind of the same thing for the back, where I peanut buttered under where I'm working now. Also had a few little issues. That being said, I do think that I am improving dramatically as a fiberglass layer downer guy. This section here is bringing me close to 4 in the morning. I am definitely getting tired. It is definitely wearing on me, and actually the memory card, it wore on the camera so much that you miss about an hour and a half worth of work there where I finish out laying that section of glass. I did decide not to finish off the glass at the rear of the boat, that fourth direction that would have gone in there. I didn't end up doing that. I knew I could get back to that after the fact or right now. I did smarten up. I took a 2-hour nap. I slept from 4 in the morning to 6 in the morning, got up, made some coffee. But I went out and got some cardboard. Now I'm laying cardboard down the bottom of the boat because I made an awful mess in the bottom of the boat. Really messed it up pretty bad. So I come back out and I look at my work and I realize that I need to grind out a bunch of air bubbles. So I don't want to have to re-clean a ton. So I'm laying out a trash bag a couple trash bags that I cut in half, and I'm masking, and I'm just leaving open where I'm going to do the grinding, and I'm masking all the way to the floor. And I probably should have been doing this a lot more through this whole project, but I'm just figuring out what matters and what doesn't matter. Right now I'm thinking keeping all this fresh fiberglass clean, like I said before, because I want to be able to just go back onto a tacky surface and create one solid surface, or one solid material of fiberglass. So I mask it all out, and then I'm going to use the oscillating grinder to cut off the tabs. There were a few things where I left the fiberglass hanging off, where I knew I was going to have to cut them off, and then there's the air bubbles, which I didn't know about. Maybe I did. You can see them when they're in there, but it gets to a point where I can't work it anymore, and I'm too scared to not keep moving on. So these are hours you don't plan for as a DIY guy, and these are hours that just add to the project. And where I should have been just crushing more fiberglass here at 6 in the morning, I am grinding, sanding again, and that'll take me to my 10 o'clock breakfast. I also realized while I was glassing this section here that I wasn't going to be able to get the glass to go all the way up into the wall like I wanted. There's another bevel up higher on the inside of the gunnel wall that I needed to peanut butter. So I just fiberglassed that material up and let it hang dry, and that I was able to pull that out with the oscillator saw, or cut it off with the oscillator saw and then just pull it out. That worked out great. But what I'm going to have to do is, after I do this grinding and sanding, I'm going to go back in with peanut butter. I'm going to finish beveling the inside of the hull. That way my second strip of 1708 on the side of the boat, which I think is probably the most critical place to have the fiberglass, will actually lay up all the way on the wall and get more than the 3 inches of overlap that I have right now. And I'm doing the same thing over on this side, where I've left some fiberglass coming off dry, and then I cut that, and then I get in there and sand it. Now, trying to do this job right, I'm trying to do this boat good. I do a ton of hand sanding to get into every little pocket of all those air bubbles, so I do get them scoured up and ready for another application of peanut butter to seal in there, and then again cover with 1708. Again, this is just exactly what this video series is about, the crazy amounts of work and the crazy amounts of hours that go into a project like this. So there it is, 4 hours worth of sanding. At that 10 a.m. breakfast, I had to admit to my wife that I had only slept 2 hours the night before, and then I was head straight back out to keep working. At this point, I can just tell you, I don't eat again until 5 o'clock this evening. I do have fiberglass all up in my forearms, and you can see me using the tape to get it all out. I had been having my sleeves up because the sleeves are baggy, and then they dip in the resin. So then I get smart and I make those Wonder Woman power bands with the tape on my forearms and get back to getting busy. My masking did work fantastically. Everything is still clean. I'm quite pleased about that. However, I do see a little bit of an issue right when I pull out that masking, and I pull out the Dremel this time and just Dremel out some of those little air bubbles, work those out before I get started making up my next batch of polyester resin. Before I do that, however, I need to clean up with the acetone and then again with the Total Boat de-waxer and degreaser. What's really driving me here is that I'm bound and determined to do a good job on this boat. So even though I'm a crappy glass layer, I am going to do what needs to be done to make sure that this glass work is structural, sound, and awesome moving forward. I am finally back to de-waxing and degreasing the entire span of the corner that needs to be fiberglassed. I am going to start at the back under the gunnel again. I will lay that little end piece that needs to go in, about 20 inches worth of 8-inch wide 1708 goes in there, and then I'm going to come back down under the gunnel all the way to the nose again and keep looping my way forward from there. But not after I do a little more peanut butter. Here I am doing the peanut butter. I am out of silica after this batch, so that was a bit of a bummer that I'm out of silica. So I needed to peanut butter what I wanted to. I made as much as I could, and it is what it is. At this point forward, I need to move forward without the ability to go back and use peanut butter. Another thing to take note of here as a DIYer, my pants are covered in tacky resin. My forearms are covered in tacky resin. There's resin in my hair. It's disgusting. It's all over the boat. The gloves are matted. I'm sometimes having to dip the gloves straight into acetone to clean them. I'm having a hard time keeping my tools clean. I'm having a hard time keeping myself clean. Just being a first timer, I think this is what happens. You just make a mess, but I am just bound and determined to keep it looking good where I need it to look good and moving forward and making moves and sealing this boat up. One thing I had forgotten up until this point, and as I'm voicing over, had forgotten up until now too, is that there was 3 little pieces there in the back, actually 2 little pieces there in the back, and the floor coming in makes the 3rd piece. And I needed to cut extra 1708 in half into 4-inch strips to lay over all of those seams. So I took care of those. And now it looks like I am doubling up the back gunnel. I'm only doing a short section of 1708 for this because I want to put a big full strip over the engine mount coming back the other way. So actually I figured I could get this one glassed in and then I wouldn't have to move to the back corner of the boat again for the rest of this section worth of work. So I got that in. Under the gunnel, I believe, is in, and then I connect somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I'm in a pretty solid state of delirium at this point. I mean, I've only slept 2 hours. It's probably past noon here, so I've only slept 2 hours in the last 18 hours, and just working on drive here, listening to Chris Webby radio and going for it. Normally I cut in to tell you where I screw up. However, this time I'm cutting in to tell you that peanut butter that I put on the little lip under the gunnel made a huge difference, and I was able to properly lay in the fiberglass there. That being said, when I do reassess this after this is all completed, there are some air bubbles in there, and I'm going to have to do another layer of grinding and sanding once I'm ready to get back to laminating after this step. But after I get this floor back in, I am done laminating for quite some time. I want to focus on getting the foam out of the rest of the boat. I'm getting towards the end of the project here. I'm laying in these short sections of 1708 in front and in back of the engine mounts. I figure I'll seal that in, as well as putting this big 8-inch wide strip of 1708 in right here. I am not going to wet out this section all the way to the right because I don't want to glass it in over the gel coat there. I want to be able to just cut that off while it's dry and then smooth out and save myself some fairing long term at the end of the project. But here I am coming to the end, this giant push that I made. It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon when I finally finish this. 25 hours, 20 some hours of work. It was brutal.